How to Sell Drugs Online Fast. It's a kind of young adult Netflix show that I would definitely recommend to you, which I actually first did see it and maybe was slightly put off by the fact that it's in German and I had to read subtitles, but I got over that pretty quickly considering the fact that I've read subtitles most of my life, both in childhood due to watching Bollywood movies and not knowing Hindi, and thereafter watching anime while being loyal to subs, not dubs. So I gotta say, definitely don't let that hold you back from watching this show. It's really a kind of great show to watch, and honestly it doesn't take too much of an investment to watch it. There's only 6 episodes per season and the episodes aren't like an hour long, they're just about 20 minutes or so. So in this video I'm gonna kind of review it in general, and I'm also gonna talk about how I felt about season 2 specifically. I actually already did a full recap of everything that happened in season 1, so if you've already watched this show but just kind of want to catch up on what happened in season 1, you can click over here where I did that full recap. It's the first time I did do a recap, so I'm hoping people like that sort of thing. But in that video, I did promise that once I have done that full recap, then I would watch season 2 because I wanted the recap to be unbiased. So this is just a kind of general review of the show and what I thought of it, and then after that I'll talk about more specific events in season 2. I'm not gonna do a full recap of season 2, at least not till season 3 comes out, when I think we might need a recap of everything that happened in season 2. So this show, How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, is a show by Netflix. It's a Netflix original, and because of that, one of the interesting things that they do on this show is they act like it's a Netflix documentary when, I mean, really it's just a TV show, but you have the character, at least the main character, sitting and talking to the screen as if he's doing a biopic on his life type of thing, which is kind of funny, and it does actually work to advantage. One time when they used the skip intro button to skip the part where they talk about the scientific details and the dangers of drugs and stuff like that. First, I want to talk about the visuals and music. The visuals and music are excellent. Particularly, I'm thinking of the intro. If you watch this show, the intro is part of the best part of this show. It's not that long, it's pretty fast, but when it does come up, it kind of hits you with a little bit of a sense of joy in doing drugs and being happy and stuff like that. Even though, drugs are bad, please don't do it. I'm not advocating for you to do it. But that intro does kind of make you feel like it's so fun, and it kind of does portray, I guess, what young people might think of the funness of having drugs and doing them, and I don't know, it's kind of really fun, and it really makes me want to do, well, not drugs necessarily, but like eat Skittles or have candy like Pez or something. It's one of the better intros I've seen, especially because it keeps it short and very interesting at the same time, as they show the pills dissolve and take its reaction and things like that, and the colors and the vibrance. Other than that, the visuals on the show aren't anything particularly spectacular, but they are shot well. It's not like a poorly developed show. Production quality is there, and music-wise too, there are moments when there are tracks that are pretty good where I'm wondering maybe I should go look for this track, but it hasn't really happened yet. There's nothing particularly in terms of music that stand out so much for me that I feel like I gotta go find this thing. In terms of the plot though, the basic premise of the show I found pretty interesting, especially if you're already looking to take it a little bit easy and just watch a young adult thing. I mean, I say that as somebody who's not a young adult, but watching young adult dramas like high school dramas and stuff like that feel like really lighthearted to me, especially after I was going through a phase of watching really dark stuff like Happy. This video is not about Happy, but if you want to watch something dark and gritty and stuff, watch Happy. Don't let that funny cartoon character throw you off and make you think this is garbage. It's dark. So after that, I went through this triage of watching a lot of young adult things, including watching Atypical, End of the Effing World, and including this one, How to Sell Drugs Online Fast. And it definitely gives this appeal and plotline about how this is sort of a high school drama, because it seems like it starts off where the main guy, Moritz, actually his girlfriend comes back from America, and she's been experimenting with drugs in America, so she comes back and it seems like everybody's just the same, and maybe that's why she kind of loses interest in Moritz and actually starts hanging out with the high school drug dealer, the privileged, good-looking boy who's got everything seemingly going for him and massively successful online lifestyle. Dan. Beyond that, the plot actually develops pretty well, and I think because they know that their seasons are only going to be 6 episodes, enough of stuff actually happens in every single episode for you to feel like this story is really moving along and the events are actually following in a seemingly sensible fashion. There's never going to be an episode where you felt like, oh, you wasted your time, you didn't need to watch this. Something does happen. There's not a lot of time, and yet at the same time, the pacing is not super fast. You don't feel like you're missing anything if you do happen to look away for 10 seconds. There's definitely a good balance in terms of speed and tempo in the story. A story of an underdog, nerdy character type person like Moritz, who I guess we're supposed to relate to because he's the uncool kid, and who supposedly we get to watch rise to the top. But not just the top of the high school, but maybe the top of the world as he runs an online drug business on the dark net. So there's elements of high school drama which are fun, and that stuff is there, keeps it lighthearted, and that is actually balanced out by the darker elements of the reality of the dark net and how to do kind of sketchy things on the internet. So there's a good balance there, and I find that really enjoyable. And to be quite honest, the way they try to explain all the things that you do on the darknet and how to make things fly under the radar and, you know, be really stealth about everything and all the kind of tech jargon that they use about online, you know, hacker talk. It's not something that I could actually verify it's accurate or not, but it is enough of it to seem realistic that's done better than anything I've ever seen on television when it comes to hacking and stuff. In the older days, hacking on television, and definitely for my generation, was just kind of like, I'm in the server setting up, breaking down the firewall, IP address, alt command, definitely pirate something. I know computers. Like, it was never believable at any point in time back then for my generation. But this show, I guess, is more built around Generation Z, and it's explicitly called out in the beginning, which is a generation after me. Moritz is a part of Generation Z, and that adds another element to the interesting dynamic of this show because it's about younger people and how they are already very much integrated to the online world with all of their lives. And that's why the whole hacker element online thing actually makes everything blend in more into the storyline to understand how it is possible that these people would know certain things or do certain things, even though they're young high school kids. Now for themes and characters. I'm combining them because one of the great themes of the show, as it is in many young adult films, is the idea of growing in identity, growing in personality. And this theme is not made more explicitly other than through Lisa, the main love interest of Moritz, the main character. Not only is this sort of issue identified through Lisa deciding between Moritz and Dan, the cool boy, it's also identified with her own struggles with her own parents who are going through a divorce and who put a lot of pressure on the type of person they expect her to become, while at the same time having many faults of their own. Now, definitely this theme of identity about who you are and who you're expected to be and who you even want to be, if you even know what you want to be, is something that is shared among all of the characters, but you can really see it with Lisa and Moritz, to a lesser extent Dan, which you can see much more explicitly in season 2, but you know, I will get to that, though it's also there with Moritz's best friend Lenny. Lenny's identity issues are actually pretty unique because he's actually dealing with an illness, and so he has a sort of time limit on how long he can live for. But it seems all of these young people in this town, including Lisa's 2 friends, Fritz and Gerda, are going through this kind of nihilistic question. A question that a lot of young people go through, I guess, but particularly young people in small towns. A question of whether or not nihilism therefore makes more acceptable a life of hedonism. If you don't know what these terms mean, let me explain it to you like this. Nihilism is sort of a philosophical perspective about reality not having any sort of meaning. There's no real meaning behind things, there's no real purpose, and everything is devoid of all of that. These young people feel like there's nothing that they can do to really break out of that small world that they're in their small town. And even though they're really unique and have special beauty or special skills, intelligence, and whatever, they're never going to really become something of importance. Even if they do go out into the world, none of their choices or anything will really change the world in an impactful or meaningful way. So faced with that kind of philosophical burden, some of them may result in thinking, hey, well then why not just enjoy my life as maximum I can while I am young and still feeling special and beautiful and all that stuff? Why not just have the drugs and sleep around and just, I guess in Moritz's case, become an online drug lord? get that power, which is sort of the hedonism part, the part where you just should live life to maximize your own personal pleasures and do what makes you happy. So this question of whether or not we should have a nihilistic perspective given the world is there, and also the question of whether or not we can react to that philosophical problem. If nihilism is actually true, if we can react to it by thinking, okay, well then might as well be hedonistic and just maximize temporary pleasures, because it's not like we have any meaningful future anyway. This whole talk is actually explicitly spoken about by Fritz, one of Lisa's friends, encouraging her to go ahead and just pursue what she wants and be with Dan. But like I said, if you want a full recap of season 1 and what happens in season 1, you can click here, or I don't know if I can put the click thing twice. But go ahead and watch season 1 and come back, or watch the recap if you want to watch a recap and come back. That's what happened in season 1. Now let's talk about season 2 and my reaction to it. Because I didn't watch season 2 while giving the recap of season 1. I wanted to be completely unbiased while giving recap of season 1 and my commentary of season 1. So now I'm completely biased and I know what happens in season 2. Wow, season 2 went crazy. Season 2 got so much better. I mean, the story still had a lot of the feel. It didn't pop out so crazily, but you could really see that the writing did kind of improve. Things that were funny before were so much more funny in season 2. Things that were intense before were so much more intense and dark in season 2. On the one hand, the kind of lighthearted teenage drama and high school lifestyle stuff which might have drawn us in initially, that's balanced with the kind of darker elements of doing things on the dark net and drug dealing and stuff like that. These both still remain balanced, but they both become incredibly intense. On the one hand, that lighthearted stuff gets super hilarious. On the other hand, the reality of being in the drug world and having associates who are real drug dealers actually becomes far more grippingly dark as well. And so that gives me the expectation that season 3 and the seasons beyond might just keep getting more and more intense. However, season 1 did kind of wrap itself up pretty neatly. But season 2 didn't seem to do that. I felt like season 2 had a massive cliffhanger in which I'm like, okay, so what's gonna happen? And I can't believe you're just cutting it off. It almost seems like the restriction of sticking to 6 episodes per season actually is impacting the show in season 2 in a way that didn't do for season 1. So in terms of the show in general, and including season 2 now, I'm gonna tell you a couple of my favorite, funniest moments of the show. The first one comes in the very first episode when Dan thinks that Lenny is sort of into him because Lenny keeps sending pictures of Dan to his online girlfriend who doesn't know what Lenny looks like. She doesn't know what Lenny looks like. She doesn't know that he is differently abled or that he has extra weight than most normal people. And he keeps sneaking pictures of Dan to send her saying, "This is me." And at one point in time, right in the first episode, Dan's shirt is off and he gets all super embarrassed when he starts thinking that Lenny, the way Lenny's looking at him, that he's really into him, and it's just a misunderstanding that I thought was hilarious. It made me laugh so hard. My second favorite funniest moment, I think, and this is probably my favorite funniest moment, is when they're having a massive dispute in the classroom and they're supposed to be doing a project, all 3 of them together, but they get so upset at Moritz, and for whatever reason Dan just wanted to fight him. But instead of punching him or just throwing a punch, he starts doing this capoeira move because he studies capoeira and he's a capoeira martial artist. So he starts doing his capoeira stuff like that, like before, preparing to kick him or whatever. And I just thought that was so funny and interesting that he would start doing that. Anyway, there are a lot of other really funny moments and I can't pick out all of them for you because this video would get really long, but I think one of the other funny moments for me, at least like randomly picking wise, when Moritz went to go meet with the Albanian family members of Bubba, who, as they sort of discuss, shake their heads like this to say no instead of like this, and this means no for them, but this means yes. So there's an awkward moment when Moritz is sitting with them and discussing, and he's kind of like, uneasy, and he goes like this, and they're going like this, and it's just like, it's funny, I don't know. I thought it was funny. The most intense moment in season 2, however, is when the drug dog actually starts barking at Moritz's door, like barking as if knowing there's a lot of drugs in there. However, eventually his father does let the drug dog into the room to search for drugs, But I already kind of foresaw that the drugs would be gone and that the drug dog would actually find the marijuana instead of the ecstasy. That wasn't like a big save or a twist for me. That was like completely predictable for me, at least. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And to be honest, one of the intense moments for me, or at least one of the moments where I was like, I can't believe this just happened, is when Moritz broke up with Lisa. Like, you did all this for her. Why? At what point in time did you decide being a drug lord kingpin online, when you can't even be glorified in that sort of, was more important to you than the love of your life? You only did this for her. Like, where's your sense of, I don't know. That was just like, Moritz, man, Moritz. Also, I guess a quick fourth one is just how Moritz does his Breaking Bad moment. You know, shaves his head, and after he's got the black eye, and he's going actually hunting with the drug dealing family, and you're just like, you know, the Albanians, and you're like, wow, he's like fully going hard into the dark drug world. Like, he's really Breaking Bad at this point. And I was just like, this show is getting really real, maybe. Anyway, despite the fact that season 2 is way funny, also it seemed way less about the high school drama stuff. And it really seemed like the high school drama stuff has already been completely settled, and it's much more about the drug world now and what's happening between the different drug factions or the different people, you know, basically the Albanians versus the good times people. And a lot of times I was wondering, like, Moritz, why wouldn't you just tell one of them to get rid of the other one or something like that? You know, why are you being so openly talking about Purple Rain that got Purple Rain dead in season 1, but now you're not talking about your problems? Like, maybe one of the groups could have just helped you. Like, you gotta pick a side, get some allegiance, and maybe use one against the other, which kind of did sort of happen in the end, and I'm glad they finally was able to make it happen. But all through the season, I was just wondering about it. Like, I don't know, when you got a lot of money and you're making money from drug dealing, I always wonder, like, and you're Breaking Bad, like, why don't you get some security? Why don't you hire the muscle? You need muscle if you're gonna do this. Like, yeah, okay, you're doing it on the darknet, but it seems like you still need it because you're still tied into real world people at the end of the day, human beings who decide whether or not they're gonna supply you. Or, on the other hand, human beings that might blackmail you. Another thing that we learned in season 2, it seems like that we don't really know if we can trust the narrator or what's on screen. Because it seems like, or at least it seemed like to me in season 1, that the show would show us what's really happening, even when Moritz would lie to the camera doing his Netflix documentary type of thing. At least they showed us that, because it seemed like Moritz was lying, but it seems like they are actually willing to show us the live version of what Moritz says when they show Moritz shaving his head when he breaks bad or whatever, but it turns out later he didn't really shave his head. Man, I mean, not that shaving his head was the important part, but it would have marked an extreme transition. Extreme transition did sort of still happen. Like, he did seem like he wanted to make himself a member of the Albanian family type of thing. But anyway, it still would have been more visually extreme if he did actually shave his head. Also, before talking more generally again about the show, I do want to note that in season 2 they did also take care of that camera footage that I was concerned about from season 1 that caught Bubba's death. As it turns out, the Albanian family did retrieve that, they just didn't turn it over to the police, and they used it to help identify Moritz and Lenny, which led to an extremely intense scene, one of the most intense scenes that we've seen out of this entire show so far. I mean, it had me sitting on edge, and the amount of leg stabbing was just enough for me to feel like, okay, some permanent damage could really be done by these people. In the story, you know, it seems like the writers were willing to make these people do something really bad. Like, I don't know if they were gonna kill Lenny, but it could have happened. Also, one of the things that I don't like is that it seems like in each season they're just gonna kill off a character that I really like. Like in season 1 they killed off Purple Rain, and in season 2 they killed off that cool hipster girl that was sort of interested in Moritz and all that. Like, I really liked her too, and it just seems like each season they're gonna have one death of one person that I really like. And I think they should call me ahead of time and ask me, like, do you like this character, before they consider whether or not they're gonna kill them. Though honestly, the way it seems like right now, if I say I do like them, that'll probably be the reason why they kill that character. Ugh. Now, some more general topics about the show in general that includes any spoilers of season 2 also. Basically, I really like Dan's character. Dan is actually a really good person. I know they kind of portray him as the kind of stereotypical high school villain because he's a good-looking, privileged kid. But it seems to be a sort of thing that happens when you kind of project ideas about how this guy has it privileged and he must be a bad person that kind of is created by the insecure, that actually makes him into being a kind of jerk sometimes when he does kind of explode, when he's pushed into it. And I think that's what happened. That was the reason why he ended up fighting Moritz and beating him up, because Moritz pushed him to it. Also, Dan was probably on drugs at the time. Anyway, other than that, Dan always seemed like a very nice guy. At no point in time do you really feel like he's really the bad person. It seems at most that he's just a kind of ignorant, funny person trying to enjoy himself. And really you kind of feel bad for him at times once he realizes that this whole lifestyle, persona, and character is something that is kind of cool and fun in high school, but really leads to extreme dead ends later in life. And you really see him trying to work on that and trying to carve a path for himself despite the fact that he is a fly, you know, according to Lenny. So I actually quite like Dan. He seems like extra nice often and just really a good person. Obviously also Moritz's father is a really solid good person, as he's trying to be a good single father and even support the kind of online insta-famous dream of his daughter. I mean, he's really supportive of his kids and is doing his best, and he just doesn't have a lot available to him to make that happen. He doesn't really know what Moritz wants, and he doesn't have a lot of money, but he was even willing to somehow try to put some money in or support Moritz and their startup plan of the energy drink level up that they were going to give to gamers, which was actually just a front of the business. But Moritz's father was willing to do that. So you always see Moritz's father just be like the good person. I don't know, it's probably because he was really damaged by the mom. Oh, we got to see the mom in this season too, and you know what? It didn't turn out like super horrific that they saw her. Nothing really extremely terrible happened, except for the fact that she also again completely disappears, and once again Moritz talks to her on the phone and is like, come on, like, do you ever think that it's not a good idea to just disappear on people? So they had that in season 2. But anyway, among all the kids, I think Dan is actually like an example good person, and I really like him so far. Like, I'm rooting for him, and it's become more and more clear to me that I don't like Moritz. As the time goes on, the more bad decisions Moritz make, the least I like him, the less I'm rooting for him to make it on top. Particularly once he decided that it's not going to be about getting Lisa. I was on his side, like I'm on the side of the romantic, of the people who are trying to do things for love, even though like really I don't think you should ever do something bad and it's completely irrational. Still, I can kind of comprehend and understand and be sympathetic and empathetic to somebody who wants to rise atop from an underdog position for the one that they love or they really want to be with. But Moritz already had gotten there to a point with Lisa and ended up breaking up with Lisa to pursue his drug world ideas, because we want to think that, you know, he was breaking up with her and telling her I don't love her because he wanted to save her in one sense. But the best way to save her would have been for him to figure out a way to get out and get out earlier. But there does seem to be a time when he's like, no, at this point in time, I want to pursue my dream of being a tech guru startup champion, which happens to be about dealing drugs online, and he's even willing to deal drugs online to pursue the dream of continuing his famed existence of being such a perfect startup online guy, despite the extreme criminal element and the violent nature of it. Now, it's also important to note that I really thought in season 1 that the good times people telling him, you know, you can quit whenever you want, you know, you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. That whole thing, like, I thought Moritz knew that was a lie. I thought Moritz knew that they were going to kill him if he went out. So when he told Lenny and Dan, oh, they're going to kill us if we want out, I thought he wasn't thinking he was lying. As it turns out, in season 2, he thought he was lying. He thought he was keeping those guys in the company with this lie that you can't get out because they'll kill us. Now, as it turns out, the good times people are really actually like that. Once you're in, you can't get out, or they will kill you, and he finds out about that. But it wasn't like to me, it was just a weird feeling, because I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't you already know this? Why do people keep expecting drug dealers to be good people? Why do we keep thinking that the criminal world, like, because they're kind of nice on the front sometimes, that they can actually be good people in heart and like really not expect the worst possible thing to always potentially happen? If you're in the dark world, you must begin to expect and prepare for dark things. And I think that's a kind of major failure that happens anytime there's these Breaking Bad things. Like, it happened on Good Girls too. Like, they're in their third season. I did a whole thing about it where it seems like the characters are still not like expecting that they're going to be extorted or blackmailed, and you're like, why don't you start barring your windows? Why don't you start getting some security and stuff like that? And in this case, when it comes to Moritz, I'm just like, you need muscle. You need to figure out how to use them and Albanians against each other. You need to figure out how you can defend yourself, and it just really isn't coming to fruition. And you think it would come to fruition because they're super careful with the online aspect. If you're so understanding about how people can try and take advantage of you online, I would have thought that translates to understanding how people would try to take advantage of you IRL, in real life. But you're not taking care of it in real life. And I think they could have come up with more secretive, careful ways of how to do things super secretively, super undetectedly in the real life, because they know how to do it online too. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I would just imagine hackers know how to be truly anonymous and get things anonymously done, connecting to the rest of the world. You know, even if it involves wearing fully masked garb and meeting people in dark rooms and leaving packages in sketchy places with, you know, orders on a USB disk that can't be traced about where that disk is created from. Like, pretty much everything taken care of every single point, you know? I just didn't see that coming out of Lenny or Moritz, and I feel like maybe that could happen, but it's just not happening yet. They gotta learn to get some muscle. They gotta learn to start paying some people. They need to learn how to like actually take care of their stuff, you know? Also, I really like that Lisa isn't just this character that's like come back from America having done drugs and goes to Moritz and like, oh, I don't really like you. And then after some sober time passing, oh, now I like you. And it isn't just like just a girlfriend side character. Like, Lisa at multiple occasions has demonstrated how intelligent and smart she is in terms of chemistry, namely how she tested the ecstasy pill that was dropped in her home to find out that it has PMA in it and it's not just pure MDMA, and also how she built this kind of bomb thing, at least that would set off the fire alarms in the school in order for Moritz to be able to do the test on another day. They were supposed to do an important test, and she did this thing so that, you know, the test got canceled, delayed to the next day, and Moritz was able to do it. She used her chemistry skills, her ingenuity, and her smart thinking in the moment, on the spot, to potentially save Moritz's actual real future with education. So also maybe because the whole show started with Lisa already having her trip and already having broken bad and coming back and coming to terms with who she wants to be, it seems like her growth is sort of offset and she's just ahead of everyone else, therefore making her more mature than everyone else and really kind of guiding other people in a positive way. Not just Moritz, but even her friends, Gerda and Fritz. Oddly, one of the things they did with Gerda though was that it turns out at the end of a thing that she was like making out with Fritz, and it was like, okay, we're gonna end this whole thing with Gerda and Moritz. And this does happen in television shows sometimes, but it's sort of annoying when story writers kind of seem to use turning a girl suddenly into a bisexual woman and suddenly into a relationship with another woman as if it's just a kind of writing device to solve the problem of how we're gonna fix this love triangle. Like, they really don't put the science in or put the work into developing a realistic idea of how somebody might be bisexual or of an other orientation, and just using this kind of alternate orientation kind of move seems to be more of a writing device to fix problems rather than actually something that they really wanted to delve in and to develop. So I don't really know if Fritz and Gerda were making out just because they were high, or they were making out because now suddenly Gerda is just suddenly bisexual and interested in Fritz, even though we've already developed some part of her character that shows that she's secretly into Moritz. Like, what happened to that development? It's just completely betrayed now because you wanted to maybe solve this kind of love triangle, and you did it with the convention of just, oh, maybe we should just make them bisexual and interested in women. Yeah, that would fix it, right. Because lesbians exist. Right, lesbians exist for us to solve love triangle problems. No, like, yeah, definitely it could be a shock to everyone, but, you know, they deserve development in that aspect too. It shouldn't just be a kind of convenient thing for you to use to solve love triangle problems. And it's just done too much that at this point it kind of like feels really cheap to me. Please give me your opinions on that in the comments below if you have an opinion. But on talking about Lisa's friends, I did find it kind of strange that Gerda was still willing to do more drugs and stuff after being already overdosed and in a hospital in the prior season. Now in season 2, she's like just having fun and doing drugs with Fritz. But at least it seems like this generation does a lot of research online and researches the exact amounts they're supposed to take. Maybe that's the lesson they learned from what happened to Gerda in season 1, but I would have thought that they already did that. All these women are pretty smart, and it maybe is because Generation Z is so connected online with online information that at least they can figure out how to do drugs in a safer, more scientific way than it was for my generation, because my generation was just like, how do you feel? That's not enough to know if you should do more or not. So the level of precision that is being portrayed by this show of Generation Z, in Germany at least, you know, taking drugs and really knowing a lot about what everything does and the chemistry behind it. I mean, that's kind of interesting. It's definitely different from what, you know, most people I associate with, you know, our experiences and memories of what it was like when we were young and talking about drugs. It wasn't like that. Also, I guess I forgot to mention, I guess this is a part of season 2 type thing, but I am talking about characters, and we finally got to meet Lenny's supposed online girlfriend, Kira, which I think is just a pseudonym, I mean just a kind of cover taken from Death Note, but whatever. I guess Kira is his girlfriend, and at first you may have thought, or at least often, I would have generally just felt about her that she's the kind of stereotypical trope of the perfect girl who's hipster and fun and knows things because she's a gamer girl and she is very good at hacking and whatever. But actually she kind of won me over with how awesomely forward she was on that blind date she was going on, meeting, or rather catfishing date she was going on, where she met Dan but notices Lenny out of the corner, and having seen him and sent Dan away, she walked straight up to him and was like, hey Lenny, are you ready to get the real date started yet? So I was really impressed by that, so it kind of did win me over, and I thought that was an awesome moment, kind of both funny and on edge at the same time, so she won me over for that. But other than that, it does seem like she kind of does fit like a generic trope that they have now of a type of Mary Sue that's just pretty much know-it-all type. I know she is supposed to be flawed in the sense of fighting with her parents and stuff like that, but hey, literally all of them are fighting with their parents and stuff like that. It's not exactly a flaw when you're talking about teenagers. But speaking of her, like, her hacking skill is such an incredible skill. Like, I cannot believe that Moritz would turn down the idea of making her a part of his team. And that really gets me thinking that Moritz is too much in line with thinking that he needs to be simply a part of the teams of one of the suppliers. Like, he's going back and forth between suppliers teams rather than really focusing on and thinking about his own team and how his own team can somehow be, if not self-sufficient because maybe he doesn't want to make drugs, at least be capable of defending themselves, cover all their tracks, and be able to fend off against suppliers if suppliers turn on him to try and actually IRL murder him or hack him or whatever. Like, he's not thinking about that as a criticism I said earlier, but really Kira could have helped in that. She really could have added to this team in terms of hacking and stuff like that. So my final note is, one of the things I think we can learn about this show is just that Moritz is making some incredibly emotional decision making. He's not actually rationally thinking about things. He's always reacting to things in such extreme ways because he's feeling bad in the moment. This is why he decides to go rob a drug dealer in response to, Dan being able to go to Lisa's welcome back party instead of him, just because Lisa made this comment about, oh, the drugs will be your ticket in the text messages. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that Lisa would have still wanted Dan there. It didn't actually have to be his ticket in. But out of such an extreme emotional response, Moritz reacted with robbing a drug dealer. And yeah, I did say I really like Dan and, shouldn't be thinking that it's good to supply the whole high school with drugs, but it seems like he was, in his childish, morally immoral mind, I don't know if he was actually selling it. It seemed like he was just providing it. He was just giving everything. Dan is open. Dan's just giving people good things and good vibes. He's not really a bad guy. It's quite shocking. Whereas Moritz is reacting to everything in such an extreme way. And another good example of that is when he sees actually Lisa and Dan kissing and he feels so terrible and so bad that his relationship is finally fully over and he's sitting there like, what am I gonna do with my life? Let's take my drugstore from the dark net to the clear net and just make it happen. You're putting major targets on yourself. You don't think the whole world has access to the clear net. Millions and millions of people that you discussed, and sure, you want to reach them as your potential customers, but you're also going to draw the ire and attention of pretty much every legal authority in the world. Because if you're providing drugs to the world in a way that is quite clearly open in every single city that does have the open internet anywhere in the world, then you're creating legal problems for all of the authorities everywhere, and they're gonna have to come after you somehow. I mean, it might be unrealistic how it seems like just that one town's cops has an investigation going on. You would think that Interpol would be down there. Pretty much all the powers of all the worlds would be down there trying to figure out how this one person, this one kid from a small room is running a drug empire with his online darknet or now surface web drugstore. This is not something small, it's massive. So that was just an extreme decision that wasn't fully thought out by Moritz, responding to a situation where his girlfriend is kissing another guy. How can I criticize kids though? How can I criticize kids? They're just kids, and for them, everything is massively huge. Proportionately, it is huge. It's huge because they haven't had such a long life. They haven't had multiple partners. They haven't, or maybe they are having it, but they haven't had so much of identity development for them to know how you could change aspects and which aspect is really beneficial for you long term or not or whatever. They haven't really had too much time thinking about who do I really want to be? What do I really want to do? And so every small decision is massive for them as they massively divert from what they were told to do by society or their parents. So that being said, this is a very good show. I want to end this video now because I'm pretty sure it's long enough. If there are some topics that I've left out that you would like for me to address or talk about, please put it in the comments below. I want to talk about what you find interesting in this show. I will make another video if y'all are talking in the comments about something that you think I missed, that was really interesting, that you want me to talk about, that you really enjoyed too. I really do like this show. I'm waiting for season 3 to come out. Maybe again, one of the best things about the show is that it doesn't take a lot of commitment to watch an entire season. It's literally a few hours and you watch a whole season. So go ahead, check it out if you haven't seen it anyway, even though you probably have if you're watching this video. Subscribe to my channel for all the other Netflix reviews and recaps that I might do in the future. I think that's where I should probably take my channel. I'm not too sure. Let me know again once in the comments below what you think I should be doing. With that, I wish you peace and victory.